What's up, guys? How's it going? Welcome to another edition of Full Blast. So this is a topic that, boy, it just comes up all the time. There's no avoiding it in the OP community. OP versus Myers-Briggs. And I've seen it come up in a couple of different venues, a couple of different social media platforms. And so I wanted to talk about it because it does not seem like it is something that is endemic to just our little Facebook group. It does seem to be something that is on the minds of many people who are new to OP, new to personality, psychology, science, whatever in general. So I wanted to talk about it, and I'm excited. So in the thumbnail, as you may notice, I have a grape and I have an apple. The best way that I can think to describe Myers-Briggs versus OP is that Myers-Briggs is the grape and OP is the apple. Trust me, this analogy goes way deeper than just like one's big, one's small. So let's talk about it. The one part of this analogy that obviously doesn't work is that OP wouldn't exist without Myers-Briggs, right? Myers-Briggs is based on the work of Jung. OP is based on the work of Jung via Myers-Briggs. And like the way that I see OP is it's just Myers-Briggs without all of the things that make Myers-Briggs shitty. Like, there is a lot in Myers-Briggs that I don't love, but that's also stuff that really is just more about like the interpretation of it. So for instance, my biggest beef, and this is something that is it's actually in Gifts Differing. Like it is in an official Myers-Briggs, book publication, right? And when it's talking about sensors versus intuitives, they're like, sensors are really good at seeing what is right in front of them and, being connected to seeing the details as they appear in reality. And then it goes on to say, intuitives can do this too, except intuitives can also see patterns and abstractions. No. Y'all, no. False, wrong, incorrect. By virtue of the fact that we are human beings, we see sensory reality and we also make patterns and connections. That's just what we do as a species, and we're very, very, very fucking good at it. So to say that half the population just can't seems wrong, like just flat out wrong. And then furthermore, right? So like right away we're introducing this bias away from sensors and towards intuition, right? In favor of intuition. And then you compound this with the fact that like people who are right? Because there is a lack of objectivity and a lack of science and a lack of like data, it's very much, well, this is my interpretation. These are the definitions, but like do whatever the fuck you want with them. Lead sensors are going to look at that and be like, what? No, stop. I'm going to go towards something that I can actually prove, or at least have some sort of cross check. And there's no cross check in Myers-Briggs. It's all just like swooshy swoosh. So naturally, the people who take the sensory more seriously and feel responsible to the sensory and prioritize the sensory and do the sensory first are going to look at Myers-Briggs and be like, this is bullshit, goodbye. Whereas somebody who is lead intuitive, disrespects sensory, over prioritizes patterns, especially of the subjective variety. Hint, hint, the lead NI, INFJ, INTJ types. they're going to be at scale less reluctant to overlook the sensory gaps. So then over time, the people who end up putting time and effort and work into this are the people who, make it, who are like, yeah, this is fine. I'm okay with the sensory gaps and inconsistencies because the system, and they make the intuitives feel really special. Okay, great. And so accidentally, they're going to build in even more of a bias towards intuition. There are so many, again, this does seem to be going away a little bit, but there are a lot of N types in the community, currently, past and present, who are just very all in on their N. And they're like, yeah, the sensory is really just whatever. That's not my job. I don't care about it. I can just make, someone else can deal with that. And I think that it creates this sort of, perpetual motion machine kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, whatever, the downward spiral, whatever, where basically you have, let's just say anecdotally, an intuitive type writing these profiles, which makes the intuitive sound awesome and the sensors sound stupid. So then the people who actually are lead N are going to fucking love it. The people who aren't lead N are going to want to be lead N and see themselves as lead N in order to be part of the group, right? And that's the real problem, is that there's no room in the Myers-Briggs community, as it currently stands, for someone to be like, yeah, I'm an ISTJ. I know fucking everything about this. Come at me, right? There's not a lot of room in Myers-Briggs culture for that. And so if somebody's trying to be like, wait a minute, guys, I think that SI is actually dope as shit. Like, I think it's fucking awesome. And I'm going to keep bringing her up because Clara is just like this lead SI wizard. And I'm like, oh my God, I just need to do more of that. That's incredible. And like finding the nuances in the sensory organism, I'm like, holy shit. Yeah, wizard shit right there. Oh, that's how people actually put together Etsy stores. It's with their SI. Okay, great, cool, got it. So, or God forbid you're an ESFP. God forbid you're an ESFP, because now you're just a fucking moron with your lead SE and your FI, like fucking disaster basket over here. You're never going to fit in with the bulk of the people who are invested in propping up unnecessarily this N. And so that's why I say that Myers-Briggs is very grape-like compared to the apple of OP. Because here's the thing. The grape is not absent of nutrition. It's not absent of nutrition. It's sweet. It gives you a little boost. If your body system, whatever, needs carbohydrates, it is, probably a little better than a piece of bread. If you, again, this is where I don't know all of the science, but like if my body needs carbohydrates and I eat a chicken leg, then my body has to work a lot harder to do the gluconeogenesis thing and turn the protein into carbohydrates, and it becomes a whole fucking thing. But like if I just need a little bit of carbohydrate in the moment, a grape is not the worst thing. I can pop it in my mouth. And juicy, it's delicious, gives me a little tang. Oh, I get to chew. It's got a nice little, the skin's like kind of chewy. I'm kind of vibing it right now in a way that I wasn't expected. And you're like, cool. I got it. I got the Myers-Briggs thing. But now my grape is gone. My grape went away because I ate it. And so now I got a couple of options. I can either go back to my refrigerator and get more grapes, which I'm not going to do because I'm not wearing pants right now. But that's right. Like I would have to go get the grapes from my refrigerator and then continue to eat grapes until I was full and got all the carbs that I needed. And it's a lot, right? Like the diminishing returns of Myers-Briggs hit really, really quickly. But I think that there is a lot of utility in it. Look, man, if you're trying to get your kids to not eat only popsicles and chicken nuggets, starting them off with a grape is not the worst plan. Be like, hey, here's this little grape. Oh yeah, a grape is a fruit. Grapes are pretty dope. You can have a couple of them, instead of eating candy, instead of having chocolate, right? We can just have a couple of grapes and that'll tide us over, right? Don't fucking start them with an apple, right? Unless, so this is just a weird subjective thing. So this is a jazz apple. I fucking love jazz apples. They are probably my favorite apple. But when I was growing up, I thought I didn't like apples because my mother would always buy Golden Delicious apples. So Golden Delicious apples, they look really pretty. They're really, really soft. But and again, I think, so part of it is that we were little kids and my teeth were not great yet. So I couldn't bite into the hard fucking apples. And they were sweet and nice and soft and chewy. But as I got older and I got my big ass teeth and my masculine sensory started to come into play, my mom loves Golden Delicious apples because she's feminine sensory. She can just sort of chew on them. It's nice. It's a texture. It's a thing. Whereas I need to fucking, that was so big. That bite was so big. Holy shit. Okay, hang on. It's gonna be. Why? I regret so many of my life choices right now. Oh, fuck. Okay, hang on. Oh, shit. Okay. So, I have to tell. I have to take it out of my mouth. Wow. That was so swing and a miss. Oh, buddy. But not only did it not go away when I took a bite, I had to be oh, fuck, there's a lot going on here. That was big. It was tough. It's kind of hard to get into. And I was oh yeah, devour a lot of OP. Nope. Hang on. That's a lot. Let's bite size it. Let's get into it. And I think that is how you need to look at OP. It is much more apple-like than grape-like relative to Myers-Briggs. Because you can't just pop the whole fucking thing in your mouth and be cool, done. There is a lot more going on. Not only in terms of the actual science and tracking and how they're defining their terms, they are way more precise about how they define their terms than Myers-Briggs is. So it's going to take a little bit to get into it. It's why they now require you to be in the class for at least 2 months before you get typed, because they ran into issues with throwing OP at people who had never had a grape before, who had no frame of reference, or they had only eaten grapes and they're yeah, I'm an ENFJ in Myers-Briggs land. And then you throw a face full of OP at them and they're actually, you're an ENFP, but you're a consume, sleep, blast, play last ENFP. So you're doubling up on your F, but you're also doubling up on your SI, which is, detailed organization. So you're actually only single activated on the end part. And they're like, blah, 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 fuck, stop, hang on. I just wanted you to tell me what jobs I should apply. I didn't want fucking my entire psychological blueprint. That's not what I fucking signed up for. And they got a lot of pushback from that. And so now they're like, okay, we need some sort of light, loose vetting process. And I think it's a really smart idea. I got very, very lucky in that my approach to Myers-Briggs happened to line up with OP. Accidentally, obviously, I think a big part of that is that Dave and I have the exact same functions and we're both INTJs. So like the odds, like I was able to fill in gaps that hadn't been explained yet. And he was able to leap over things where there were gaps and be like, look, the point of this is this. And I'd be like, yep, no, I got that. I can fill in the gaps on my own later. That's fine. But ultimately, I think they're not as far apart as a lot of people try to make them. And I do think, personally, I think that Myers-Briggs has extraordinary utility as a first pass. Just getting comfortable with this idea of, look, binary coins are trackable and observable in real life, and you can leverage that to your advantage. The premise of that is super fucking useful. I was talking to a guy, he was like an actor teacher friend of mine. And this is right when I was really into it. And I was like, hey, what have you heard about this? Like, have you found it useful? This and that, whatever. And he was like, ugh, Myers-Briggs, like, it's just it's a false dichotomy. It's not useful. It puts people in boxes. We need to be freedom of expression, and we can't be put in it's an unuseful way to label people. And I was like, I think you're missing the point of it, because whether or not it is useful to you, that is subjective. I know a lot of people, myself very much included, who even just being able to say, okay, broadly speaking, leaving the functions aside, I am more extroverted than not. I'm more patterny than as far as like, very detail, again, this is where I got a little fucked up because I was thinking of it very much like sensory by the book details in an SI sort of way. But also just like, do I tend to be a little more detached or a little bit more present and in the moment? Yeah, my impulse is just to be very detached. It always fucking has been. And then as far as like reasons, again, here's where you get a little fucked up in the terms, but like the T versus F, like, are you more interested in making decisions based on sort of the blocks that work together in a very mechanical way? Or are you more interested in, prioritizing values and what's important to you or what's important to the tribe, again, depending on how you do it. Does this work or is this valuable? Yeah, I've always been much more, does this work? Right? In theory, in practice, whatever, that's a different set. And then for the P versus J, look, even I'm like, I don't love it just because I don't think the nomenclature is right. But I think the basic premise of, do I prefer to gather or organize, is wildly fucking important. If you know for yourself that not only do I like to organize, but that other people don't, that's an extraordinary tool to have in your tool belt. And when you can start to just think of things in that way, of like, okay, opposites, introversion and extroversion, however the fuck I choose to define them, yeah, those two complement each other. Being, reasonable versus being, being reason driven versus value driven, I think that is a useful dichotomy to be able to observe. Where Myers-Briggs goes wrong is that, generally speaking, the culture of Myers-Briggs tends to be very much about doubling down on your type and finding others to fill in those gaps for you. At best, really, I think that you can argue that a lot of the Myers-Briggs community, at least when I was back in the thick of it, it's sort of like 2012, 2015, 2016-ish, was just hardcore, like, intuitives are the best, find your tribe, find people who are just like you or very, very close to you. Like, even in the compatibility stuff, right? The sort of the classic INTJ and ENFP matching up. It's like, yeah, we have the common ground of the N, and yeah, we're filling in the gaps elsewhere. But like, the idea being, let's find the common ground and to encourage people to double down on their saviors. I don't agree with this. I don't think that you have to go as hardcore about it as some in the OP community may advocate. But I think that at a bare minimum, you absolutely must respect all 8 functions. Got to do it. That's just a bare minimum for fucking living. To be a person on the planet, you have to respect all of the things, right? You can't be like, yeah, I don't know, I'm an NI guy. I just want an NI all the time. I don't really need SI. I'm gonna pause you right there. I think that at some point you are going to find that SI is going to be monumentally useful. Even if you're bad at it, you're going to need that at some point in your life. So, like, I'm going to strongly recommend that you get comfortable with it, with the idea of it, learn more about it, learn what it's trying to do, learn how it can benefit people in general. And if at that point you decide, you know what, for this thing that I'm working on right now, I don't need SI. I don't think that SI is the right tool for this job. I think it's a sensory thing that I need to do, but I think it's more gather than organize. So I'm going to do that. And then if you're like, fuck, SI is ideal. SI is the right tool for the job. Okay. Is there a way that I can use my NI to get the same result because my SI just is not good enough to get this job done in the time that I have to do it? So yeah, let me do the NI version because the organize-y matters more than the sensory. It's not going to be ideal, but it's the best that I can do right now given the time constraints that I have. Right? That's really, really important. And that is something that I have just seen as being really, really absent in Myers-Briggs. So, as some of you may know, I am a singer. I have been singing since I was a little kid, and I went to school to study opera. I'm a trained classical opera singer. And so this might be a little bit of a deep cut for those who are not like in the opera voice pedagogy world, but I think it's a really important analogy, and I'm going to explain it the best that I can. So we all know who Pavarotti is, right? The great Italian tenor of the genre. I mean, you want to talk about a dude who can fucking sing. This dude can sing. sang. And there are broadly two categories of song in the opera classical singing world. There are arias, which are, solo pieces written for an opera. It's just you and the orchestra singing your face off for 4.5 minutes, right? It is not like musical theater. It does not move the plot forward. It's just, you're standing there and it's like, oh my God, I am having so many feelings. I am looking at this portrait of the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. I just need to sing about it in German for 4 minutes. That's an aria, right? And then there's what are called art songs. And art songs are parlor songs, chamber songs. They were not written necessarily for, to be performed on a big stage. They're sort of like the pop songs of the day. And they're fine. They're lovely songs, beautiful, melodic. Con te partirò, right? Time to Say Goodbye, the Andrea Bocelli made famous song. That is not technically an art song. Like, that is very much like a contemporary pop song. But it's that kind of a song, right? It is much more like that than like, I'm just going to try to like Nessun Dorma, right? The things that Paul Potts sings, like that is an aria. Con te partirò, not quite so much. Okay, great. But, there are these art songs, and they're lovely and they're nice, and they tend to be given to younger singers, to people with younger vocal instruments. And they're really, really looked down on. And in some ways, I have no idea why. And in other ways, I know exactly why. Because culturally, in the, opera world, we think of art songs that were not written for operas, as being kind of juvenile, kind of whatever, kind of, it's great if you have a little baby voice and you're just starting out, but really you should be singing arias, even if it's just Mozart. Like, you should be singing an aria, a harder piece, a more complex piece, something that requires more voice. And that's not true. And I bring up Pavarotti in this context. So there was a book back in my day. It was called 24 Italian Art Songs and Arias. It is now 26 Italian Art Songs and Arias. There's a song in there called Caro mio ben. It is one of my favorite classical singing songs of all time ever. It's fucking beautiful. But no one takes this song seriously because it was, it's in this book that's kind of chintzy. It was written for a Baroque opera. It's written for an opera that we don't do anymore. But it's in this book of collections. It's in this thing, and like nobody really uses it. It's kind of whatever. And so as a result, the only people that end up ever singing it are younger singers, which only reinforces the idea that it should only be sung by younger singers. But there's a recording of Pavarotti doing it in the 70s, and you're like, oh, no, this suits a huge ass voice. And I really think that a comparison can be drawn between that and this Myers-Briggs OP fight, if you want to call it. I think it's really important to understand the strengths and limitations of Myers-Briggs. I think it's super, super important. Because if you don't understand the premise of Myers-Briggs, because the premise of Myers-Briggs is not that different from the premise of OP. We're just looking at 4 binary coins And with that, making 16 types. That's all we're doing. I don't love the binary coins. I think that there's more nuance that can be had from it. There's nothing particularly trackable about it. But the basic premise of 4 binary coins based on Jungian psychology, it isn't not OP. Like, it's not. It is a lot closer to OP than astrology is, right? And I know that people often are like, Myers-Briggs, it's a lot like astrology. You can read anything into any profile. I mean, kind of, sure. But like, I think that there's more validity to being able to say, okay, I was born at a certain time of the year. That's naturally going to affect my personality. Compared to, yes, this is a self-assessment. Yes, it is subjective in that sense. But, I can at least see, like, look, it helped me so goddamn much. When I was able to type myself as an ENTJ back in Myers-Briggs land, and I still think, if you ask me what my Myers-Briggs type is, my Myers-Briggs type is ENTJ. There's no way around that. I think that my OP type is more accurate, right? My NITE, so more of an INTJ. But like, if I roll up to a Myers-Briggs meetup and I'm like, yeah, what's up, guys? How's it going? I'm an INTJ. Everybody's going to be like, okay, ENFP, got it. I'm like, no, guys, I promise you, I'm just a very outgoing INTJ. You just want to be an INTJ. Oh, motherfucker. Okay, you know what? Fine, I quit. But, so in Myers-Briggs land, me being able to go, okay, broadly speaking, half the people in the world are going to prefer, going to prioritize, going to want to do first the value game. And half the people are going to want to play the reasons game, right? Or the block banging game, the does this make sense game, does this work game. And, when I was able to pinpoint, holy shit, right, I really am more block bangy. And then I looked around at my cohort of musical theater performers and I was like, oh, right. They're all playing the values game. All they care about is this valuable? Whether is this thing valuable? Is this person valuable? Is this class valuable? Is this gig that I'm trying to take valuable? Is this side gig valuable? Like, it's all just value. Whereas I'm like, okay, well, does it make sense for my career to do this? Does it make sense? Like, can I afford this class? Does it make sense to prioritize this audition over that audition? Regardless of what I want to do or what other people want to do, the actual building blocks of it is like, no, you really should prioritize this because that'll affect this other thing. And it's, again, we're just layering the blocks. And that was really helpful for me to be able to actually leverage my skills and to be able to position myself as somebody that's like, hey guys, are you stuck in Feeler Town? Come hang out with the Jolly Raja. He'll give you all kinds of reasons to support all of these feelings that you're feeling 24/7, right? And I wouldn't have been able to do that without Myers-Briggs because I would have been stuck in this idea of just like, I'm just bad at everything. Nothing is good. I'm just inferior in every way to everyone around me because I didn't have this little triangulation. And me being able to start with, okay, we're all pretty outgoing, so I'll give us all an E. But man, there are a lot of people who cannot see the forest for the trees. Whew, fair enough. And feelings all day, and lack of organization. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so we do have in common the extroversion, but the other ways we're not very similar. Oh, okay, I'm not a broken person. I'm just different from the people that I've been around. And I think that that's a really, really important place to start. Even if you type yourself wrong, I think it's fine to start there. I really, really do. And I encourage everybody. Obviously, I prefer OP. That's been like, just because I think the diminishing returns of Myers-Briggs, it just stops. Like, you level up, like the level cap on Myers-Briggs is just very clear, and it's moderate. I think it's right in the middle, right? I don't think it's quite as shallow as some. When I say astrology, I mean like horoscope astrology. I don't mean like actual Chani Nicholas wizard shit. That's obviously very, I don't know how Chani does what she does. I just don't. The woman's an actual wizard, and I just have to accept that. But I'm talking about like horoscope level astrology. Like Myers-Briggs to me is very clearly a step above that. So I encourage anybody who's watching this who's like, I'm coming from a Myers-Briggs background. OP seems a little intimidating. It feels like everybody's like shitting on Myers-Briggs. Here's what I will say to you. You're not that far away. I promise you are not that far away from being able to get the most out of OP. Here's what you need to do to make that leap. Embrace the binary coin aspect and recognize that the goal of OP is not to make your demons your saviors. And I think that that is something that has become more apparent. But I think that for a long time, a lot of the rhetoric was very much about, you know, your saviors are shit. You have to do your demons. Your demons are the salvation. Fuck your saviors. You know, beat your saviors out of you with a stick. And I'm like, no, because now you're just swinging way too far in the other direction. And now you're adding trauma to this thing that you're very, very good at, that you're eventually going to have to fucking do again. So rather than traumatizing yourself and making more work for yourself down the line to reintegrate your saviors, recognize, okay, these are the muscles that I've been working for my whole life. Let's assume you're right. Let's assume you see yourself clearly enough and you're like, yep, I am an ENFP. That seems right. Or at least close enough. Cool. Your next task is to go, okay, let me work on flipping one of these binary coins. So it's like, you know what? I really do, if I'm really being honest, I just kind of live in la la land all the time. I'm just kind of head in the clouds. The first thing I want to work on is just being really grounded, making lists, doing details. I'm not going to worry about being a completely different person. I can still be outgoing. I can still prioritize values. I can still be really open-minded, open-ended, loosey, whatever, freewheeling. But let me at least prioritize the sensory. Let me at least prioritize feet on the ground, step by step. And once you get a handle on that, then the natural consequence of that is like, oh shit. Oh wow, I really do need to be more organized. I am doing too much gathering. All right, well, as a building block from that, let me just get more comfortable keeping my options limited and focusing on one thing at a time. Okay. Yeah, now we're really making movement. And once you start to get that coin under your belt, then you can be like, you know what? As a natural extension of my sort of being focused and grounded, I kind of don't need to be as outgoing. Like there's work that I can do on the inside. Like I can dial the extroversion knob down a little bit and I can play the introversion game a little bit more. Cool. And then again, I don't know what your order would be. For me, my order was very much, so if I started out ENTJ, I immediately went to, I'm all in on my T. I gotta work on my FI. And then as part of that, I was like, all right, I can be a little bit more introverted. That is sort of the natural progression of that. And then from there, I was like, all right, I think rather than the J, I think I just need to be more open. I was not ready to deal with the N versus S and getting in touch with my masculine sensory. That didn't come until later. But whatever it is, like, just start tweaking one knob at a time and get comfortable just tweaking one knob if you're coming from Myers-Briggs land. It's very, very tempting to see this rhetoric about like, everyone types themselves upside down, everyone is dog shit, you have to start working on all of your demons right now. No, stop. Because if you do that, the odds of you burning out are really, really good. And all that's going to make you do is resentful towards growth. And that's the last thing that I or anybody else wants. Our goal is for all of us to see ourselves more clearly, to see the world around us more clearly, and to be able to walk through the world and engage with others in a way where we can prioritize kindness and prioritize growth and help and growing and giving and, making the world a better place. And a really good way to do that is to feel like you have all the possible tools in your arsenal and to feel like, you know what? This really is a time to be present and grounded and to not think a year into the future of where this is going to go. Just enjoy the moment. Oh, cool. I worked that muscle before. I know how to do this. And then you do it. And then maybe it's great. Maybe it blows up in your face, but you did it. And now you can go back and debrief. Sorry, my nose, it's been very allergy heavy here. My nose has been just a mess today. I've not been doing coke. I just want that to be super clear. I don't do cocaine before these videos. It's just allergies. But my point is, once you start to, get it into your mind that like all of these things are just tools in service of the ultimate goal of growing and giving and making the world a better place and moving humanity, your culture, your community, whatever it is, forward. Now I think it's a lot easier to see why we use these binary coins and why they can be so helpful in most situations, because it just gives you more options and it lets you not feel like, well, I'm only good at pattern seeking and intuition, my lead NI. And even though the situation requires SE, I don't want to do that. I'm not good at it. So I'm just going to do the thing that I'm good at and just hope that the universe takes care of that. And sometimes it does, but eventually it's going to fail you and you're going to get a big tidal wave and you're going to have to pick up the pieces. And ultimately the answer is choosing to take responsibility for all of yourself and just being comfortable with the process of working on all of that and trusting that down the line, the problems that you're having, they're not going to be absent, but you're going to be able to actually deal with them in a productive and meaningful way. All right, that's all I got for today. Thank you for hanging out with me and dealing with my itchy nose. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.